What is going on, everybody? My name is Eric, and you're listening to another episode of the Unlockables podcast. I thank you so much for tuning in each and every week, wherever, whenever in time and space you might be located. I always appreciate you spending a little bit of time out of your busy schedules with us. If it's your first time, if it's your ninth time, however many episodes we're out, I always appreciate you stopping by, hanging out, and just having a good time with us. But enough about that, because I want to bring in my guest for today right away. Somebody that I've looked up to since I've been in the podcasting scene. You might know him from such incredible things he's done on his show, such as History of RTS, Captain N, the Final Fantasy Draft, which just aired recently. It is my good friend and podcast veteran, Josh from Still Loading Podcast. Josh, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. A little bit short notice, so you're kind of bailing me out again this week, but I appreciate it all the same, sir.
This is the first time I've ever bailed you out. What are you talking about?
Someone bailed me out last week, so it's just an ongoing theme that I'm just terrible.
I get you.
Yeah. Maybe it's foreshadowing. Maybe we're just going to be on like the next 8 episodes. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, people, they'll hate me by the end of that.
Nonsense.
Are you kidding me?
I don't. That's impossible because you're impossible to hate. So just stop it.
I'm sure there's somebody out there. I'm fairly certain.
There's always haters. So have you? I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but they say that once you get the haters, you've made it. So in all your years of doing this, have you gotten haters yet? Have you made it?
Believe it or not really. I've never really had anyone like send me a nasty email or send me or write any negative comments. The closest thing I have to it, I'm going to pull out my phone real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to whip it out real quick. But no,
this is an adult podcast. That's totally fine.
Okay, cool.
The video doesn't go up on Spotify. So,
so I got a review of my show, and it was a 5-star review, but it was one of the strangest reviews I've ever gotten. It was from I'm not going to say the person's name. You can see it if you're curious. But after I released an episode on Shadow the Hedgehog like years ago, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Classic game.
Whoever this person is, every single word was ended with a period. Like it was okay, period. So, period. I've, period. Only, period. And so on and so forth. And it's like a paragraph long. Every single word ends with a period. So I don't know where the sentences really begin or end, because every single
it just ends every
sentence
word.
is a single word. And the whole thing is like that. And the whole thing reads like, okay, so I've only heard of Shadow the Hedgehog 2005. I haven't actually played it. I'm very young, but I'm not that young. And I don't think Shadow the Hedgehog is that violent, but you guys do. But you guys do make a pretty solid point. Shadow the Hedgehog is edgy. Yes, you guys are right. Shadow has a motorcycle. And it keeps going.
That's very strange.
One of the strangest reviews I've ever been given. But he gave me 5 stars, so I'm like, I'm assuming this is a guy. I have no idea. But they gave me 5 stars, so it's like, all right, thanks, cool. I don't know what to make of this.
That's also a lot of
strange.
That's also a lot of dedication to like type out and put a period after every single word, because that takes a little bit of time. So
I swear I had an aneurysm after reading that. I was so confused. I'm like, who would do this?
I'm legitimately stupider after reading this. My IQ has been lowered.
Pretty much. The only other review I got, and I don't consider this a hater review, I had not a fan of the show. He gave me 4 out of 5 stars and basically was saying like it really enjoys the show, but I'm constantly too hard on myself and like I'm too self-deprecating on the show. And I've said this before on other podcasts. I've mentioned this review, but that was actually like, I don't consider that hating. That's constructive, valid criticism. And I was like, all right, fair enough. So I tried to incorporate that, be a little bit more confident and type of thing, you know? So those were the 2 closest ones. I've never really had anybody be an asshole to me, which is interesting. I don't know. It's weird.
I hope that guy never listens to anything I do, because I hate on myself every single episode. So he would certainly not like whatever this is. So,
well, I mean, the thing is, you want to, I mean, it's okay to be there. There's a balance you have to strike between, like being humble, which I think is like super important. I think like it's a very important thing, especially in content creation, because there's going to be people who like start later than you and become significantly more successful than you. So like you have to be able to be like, well, I'm not, it's whatever, but at the same time, you don't want to be too humble, because then it's like no one wants to listen to somebody be hard on themselves for like an hour straight, just talking about how bad of a podcaster or bad of what, like unknowledgeable or something, you know, whatever thing you're saying it negatively about yourself. Like no one wants to hear that. So you just kind of find a balance between the two.
I agree. It's always fun to joke at your expense, but yeah, I definitely agree. And I have found success that way as well. So just to kind of start things off here, I always ask, considering it's a video game podcast, have you been playing anything good lately?
I have been playing 3 games concurrently.
Oh.
I'm working my way through Dark Souls on the first Dark Souls. Never played a Souls game before.
Okay.
On my stream every Saturday night. It's a little bit of a promo there, but on Twitch every Saturday night, I'm playing Ni no Kuni, the RPG, the Studio Ghibli art style RPG. I'm playing that every Tuesday night on stream, and then off stream, I always try to find at least one game to play off stream. But I've been doing really bad job at keeping up with it. I'm playing through Persona 3 for the first time.
Oh, okay.
On my PS2. I'm playing that off stream. That's for me. That's not for, I mean, eventually I'll probably do a podcast episode about it, but I'm not like playing it with the expectation like I got to beat it by the end of May in order to record a podcast. Now I'm just playing it, and then I'll eventually do a podcast on it.
Right. So how are you finding your first time through Dark Souls? I've played through probably, I'd say 3/4 of the first one. So I'm just curious how your experience been with that.
I have opinions, a lot of anger, a lot of rage, which is understandable. That's pretty much everyone's. I think there's a part of me that's a bit of a contrarian where I want to be like, this game isn't as good as everyone says it is. But every time I keep running into it, I'm like, this is really good, and I see why people give it the praise they've given it. But there's so many moments where I'm like, this is just unnecessary. Like this isn't difficult. This is mean. And it's stuff where it's like you can get stuck on. For example, there was a boss I was stuck on. I'm still pretty early in the game too. It's the gargoyles, and the undead.
The bell
parish.
gargoyles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had the closest bonfire. You still have to fight through. You need to fight through a handful of enemies. Otherwise, they will just chase you all the way up, and you will die. Like you can't make it past them. So I know a lot of times you can run past enemies. Not this time. They're in the way to get to the bell gargoyles. So you have to fight all the way back through this. Then you get up to the bell gargoyles, and then you think you're doing well in the first one, and then a second one shows up. And I'm like, and that I don't consider that necessarily unfair, but it is a little mean, because then you're going to die when that second gargoyle hits, and then you have to spend 5 to 10 minutes fighting your way back through, which every enemy in these games is like a mini boss fight in the first place. So the best way I can describe it is it doesn't feel like it respects the player's time, because I have to go through 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, usually not 10. It's usually like 5. I have to waste 5 minutes of my playthrough just to get back to the boss and hope that I get up to the point that I was in the boss before, because shit happens. You don't really know when you're going to die in a boss fight. And it was really demoralizing, because I spent 3 streams on that one boss. I was only about like 2 to 3 hours a piece, so I would say I spent 5 to 6 hours total trying to get that boss down. But it was just so demoralizing, and it wasn't because I kept dying at the boss. It's because I kept having to go back through the same stuff that I've already proven that I can beat, and I'm at full health. Like I'm not even like losing all my health, my Estus flasks, my health potions or whatever. I'm not even using all of them in the fight before I die sometimes, because I can't make it. So it's not like the challenge is like, can you keep enough health potions and then get to the boss and then survive the boss? I'm not even getting to that point. It felt like I was just beating my head against a rock over and over and over again. And then when I finally did beat the gargoyle, that sense of satisfaction everyone says that you get from it, didn't feel it at all. I was like, that was a waste of my time.
Really?
But with that really heavy criticism that might get me my first hate mail because of the Souls community. I still really like the game. Like, despite my frustration with that to me is not like objectively bad game design. That's just not my taste. That's not my cup of tea. And I'm still enjoying it. The only other thing I dislike is the lack of a pause button. I understand it's for online play, but I have a kid, and if I think that's really ridiculous that if something happens and then I have to run out, like I understand it's just a game, so it's not that big of a deal, but like say I have to run down quick and help my wife with something, or I have to help my kid with something, and then I die because through no fault of my own except for having a life. That doesn't respect the player in my opinion, But at the same time, I like the aesthetic that it builds. I like that it's making you not feel safe the entire time. And I understand that's the vibe that it's going for. So I'm just very torn about it. Like I'm torn where it's like, I really hate this, but I understand why they're doing it. And that makes it really cool and good, but I hate it at the same time. It's a love-hate relationship. That was a really long rant.
That's okay. That's what the show is for. I kind of experienced a lot of the same things you did. I remember, I did my playthrough several years ago and kind of just fell off of it just because of like timing and stuff like that. And the bell gargoyles specifically stick out really big to me as like, that was a really, really almost like the first kind of super big roadblock in that game where you realize that this is what this game is all about. It's about dying and retrying sometimes for hours. And it really was this age considering when Dark Souls 1 originally came out, which I think was the 360 era. And games hadn't really arrived at that point where they kind of learned to respect your time yet. Like we've gotten a lot better about that now, but back then they were just trying to squeeze as much time out of you as they possibly could.
But even so, I think I think even saying not respecting the player's time might be a little bit harsh for that. And hopefully anyone who's upset at me for my opinion on my frustrations with Dark Souls at least has listened this far in to realize that I don't think it's bad and I enjoy it.
Right.
But I do think there's elements to it that it's like you could be more respectful of the player's time, but at the same time it reinforces the entire aesthetic that the game is going for of this difficult, not safe, like you're not safe anywhere. And that's the whole point, and I get that. But I think that Dark Souls is one of the most important games in game history, even though it's relatively young by comparison, because at the time that it came out, everything was so fucking boilerplate and streamlined, and it's like, because games were so expensive, they had to make them easy so that way so they would not alienate anybody. And From Software really found a formula that balanced the insane difficulty with like addictive gameplay and world building and all this other amazing stuff that the FromSoft games do. And they were able to make it so it didn't feel that insurmountable to people, even casual gamers, even gamers like me who don't like to have that level of difficulty, not because I don't want to work my way through it. It's just because I don't have the time to work my way through it. Like I only have a couple hours a week to play games. I don't want to spend those hours on the same exact fucking place over and over and over again. I want to feel some semblance of progress. But they made it, and it was so successful, and it continues to be successful. Obviously, Elden Ring is huge, and I think it's super important because it showed all the other AAA studios like, oh, we can actually, like, hard games aren't bad. Like, what are you talking about? And I think it's super cool that From Software was able to kind of revitalize the Japanese game industry in the US, because for a while Japanese games were kind of shunned for a long time in the US and in North America. And so it's kind of cool that FromSoft kind of brought everything back.
I agree. And I've said a few times on a couple different guests I've had on this show that whenever we look back like 20, 30 years from now, we look back on this era of gaming, or like the 360 and like the subsequent eras like 2010s and 2020s, you don't tell the story of this age of gaming without From Software. Very, very, very big player in this era. I've already said that. You go back and you talk about like the 80s with your Marios and your Nintendos. Like when you talk about 2010 and 2020, you will talk about From Software and Dark Souls. Like I very firmly believe that. And yeah, it's taken us into something. I agree with you. It was so like corporatized and homogenized, and I'll just look at the games they're putting out then. And then along comes Dark Souls, and it was just kind of like, I didn't really realize it at the time until I went to, when I was in college, I believe I went to the midnight launch of Titanfall, and the midnight launch of Dark Souls, I think it was Dark Souls 2 maybe, was occurring at the same time. And so the line at the GameStop was like double as long because there were people there for Titanfall and people there for Dark Souls. And I didn't even realize, it kind of hit me then. Oh, wow. Like this is actually like a thing that people are really into. So probably, I think that time was probably Dark Souls 3. If I'm remembering correctly, it's one of the two. I don't know. My concept of time is an illusion right now. So, but yeah, very good points. And I agree with you. I've been playing 2 games, if you allow me to move on and continue.
Oh, by all means. It's your show.
I finished Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And
nice.
That was absolutely fantastic delight. Kirby is always just fun. It's relaxing. It's cute, adorable gameplay. Kind of gets a little bit weird with some of the lore and stuff because it's Kirby. But it was absolutely incredible. I've gone on record saying it's my favorite Kirby since Superstar on the SNES, and I hold that one in very high regard. And obviously Nightmare and Dreamland on the GBA. Those are kind of my 2 in the Kirby pantheon for me.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 really good ones, I think. And it's the best one. It's kind of dug Kirby out of the rut they've had these last few games where Star Allies was kind of mediocre, and they just kind of been doing all this weird stuff with Kirby. Like he's yarn, one game he's like a ball of clay. It's good old fashioned Kirby fun. So that's been fantastic. And I've been playing another game with my wife. She really enjoys games where you can like do chores and stuff,
like Stardew Valley or like
yes.
Animal Crossing or okay.
This is an even deeper cut. So she found on the Switch eShop a game called House Flipper. Yes, I couldn't even tell you who made it. It was like $20, and pretty much all you do is you're just like a person who like does chores and flips houses.
Okay.
And so you'll like go into a house and there's just like trash everywhere, and you have to like pick up all the trash, and you have to like paint the walls and redo the house and furnish it and like all this stuff so you can like get it ready to sell on the market. And that's like pretty much the whole game, and you just constantly do like bigger and bigger houses and bigger challenges. And I mean, it's by today's standards, it's not, if it's like, Elden Ring is the high end or Horizon with graphics, this is probably like low end PS3 era for how it looks. But there's just something weirdly satisfying about doing chores in a video game and checking things off of a list, especially when you get to fulfill your real estate fantasies, I guess, if that's a thing.
I mean, hey, we're millennials, man. We can't afford houses, so
that's true.
So
yeah,
it's living out our deepest, darkest fantasies. Oh my God, what if I owned a house?
It's the closest I'll ever get. Oh my God.
Voice suddenly dropped. Oh, houses.
Yes. So yeah, it's very weird, but she's been having fun. I've strangely been. It's not a game I ever thought I would pick up and play, let alone enjoy, but it's strangely enjoyable and relaxing.
That reminds me, I haven't played this, but I've watched some people stream it, and I really want to try it. There is a game. Where it's just power washing, and you power wash.
I've heard of that.
Oh my gosh, it looks so freaking therapeutic. And like as you play through the game, you can buy different spray nozzles to get better angles on certain like objects that make it super hard to hit with your standard nozzle. So like
I think there's like follow the developer on Twitter.
There's like mild RPG elements if you think about like action RPG elements, because like you're leveling up your nozzle to like, it sounds gross, but leveling up your nozzle to to be able to clean the like the lawn furniture or like a tree. There's a cool level in a tree house and stuff like that.
That's
so
awesome.
I was watching people play it. I'm like, this is bizarrely satisfying. Like I want to play this game. This feels like something that's amazing for anxiety, just to give you such a hyper focused task to work on. It seems kind of cool. I'm curious about it.
Right. It's very strange. And they have one too. I follow the Power Wash developer, and then my friends have told me about they came out like last year, the lawn mowing simulator too. So it's just like you could go outside and mow your grass, but apparently it's more fun to do it in a video game. It's strange, but I agree. It looks very therapeutic, especially with the way people are like cutting patterns and rows and stuff. I was that's very strange, but hey, I won't knock it. I won't knock it. If that's the sort of thing you enjoy playing, then absolutely go for it.
There's a game for every walk of life.
Yeah. Maybe if you hit like a certain year or like listen goal, maybe you stream Power Wash Simulator. Make that an incentive. I don't know.
I mean, I'd probably stream it without the incentive.
Regardless.
I mean, I'd play that. I'm trying to stick to 2 games right now, and that's Ni no Kuni and Dark Souls. The only reason Dark Souls I only play on Saturdays because it is a difficult game and it gets me really mad. So I only play once a week, so that way I don't want, because I'm enjoying the game enough, a decent amount. There was actually, like, the first time I played it, I streamed the very next night because I still wanted to play more. I really liked it, but it makes me so mad that I'm afraid that if I play too frequently, that I'm just going to get burned out on it because I'm going to be mad all the time, and I don't want that. I want to be able to experience this game that everyone has talked about and praised so much, and like I said before, like it really is really well made. It's just certain elements, it just really grinds my gears. I'm not even going to say those elements are bad. It just gets under my skin.
You really do have to. It's just such a different way of thinking and playing a game. It's just, at least for me, that's when I played it, and I'm more open to it now because I've experienced more types of games where difficulty and death are a bigger part of it. So I think that's. But yeah, I agree with everything you said about Dark Souls, and just the noise around Elden Ring and stuff has made me consider more going back to it. And
that's why I started playing Dark Souls, because of all the hype from Elden Ring. I was like, I got to try this now. Like, I have to know what this game is all about. So yeah, it's been fun.
Exactly. So, Josh, if we can move on here, I want to talk a bit about your show. You host the Still Loading podcast, awesome show with an incredible name, because I remember when I was looking for names for my first podcast, I was thinking of something video game related, and I was like, oh, like doing something with loading would be super cool. And I remember specifically seeing your show because I'd look up to see if show names were taken. And I was like, oh man, like this guy already has something. Of course, like it's already taken. So it's an absolutely fantastic name. But you have a show that's been going on for
almost
longer
years.
Than
almost
8 years.
It'll be 8 years in July.
Wow, that's a long time. Wow. What can you tell me about? Yeah, it's been a while. What can you tell me about the show's origins? How did this kind of whole journey start for you?
So I started the podcast in 2014 because I started listening to podcasts when I got the job actually where I work at now. And it allowed me to listen to music. And when I got tired of music pretty fast, so I started discovering podcasts. And actually back then I had a Windows phone. It wasn't like Android or iPhone or Apple. It was a Windows operating system on my phone.
That's a throwback.
Yeah. And I remember looking at the podcasting option on their like media, on their like music player app. And I'm like, all right, let's see what some of these, I knew what podcasts are. We actually had to make one in college for like the college's podcast feed, but I had no idea how they worked. So I started listening, and I discover Kevin Smith has a bunch of podcasts, and he specifically Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, and I was like, well, I like Jay and Silent Bob. I'll try this podcast out, and it was not what I was expecting at all. They weren't in character. It was all about Jay working through his sobriety, which is really cool, but I had no idea what to expect. And then I started looking for like, well, what if there's any retro game podcasts? And I discovered Retronauts, one of my personal favorite. I shout them out consistently on my show because they're a huge inspiration for me. And so Kevin Smith I forget which podcast it was, but he has this rant. I don't want to say rant. He has this speech where he talks about the why not philosophy. And the whole idea is like, don't surround yourself with yes people or no people. Surround yourself with the why not people. Because no people is you're not going to get anything done. And yes, people, you're going to make a lot more mistakes because they think every one of your ideas is great, even when it might not be. The why not people are the ones who'll be like, yeah, well, why not? Let's try this. Let's see what happens. They're the ones who are willing to go along on the ride with you, even if they don't fully understand what your vision is. So the why not people are who you want to surround yourself with. And he talks about like everyone should make a podcast because everyone has a voice, and it's such an easy barrier to entry. It's such a low barrier to entry, and everyone has a way to tell stories. And I was like, you know what, that would be fun. But what would I do this on? And then I was listening to Retronauts, and I was getting really like deeper into my love of video games, and it just kind of synced up all around the same time. And I decided I was doing my friend and I, you can find it on the Still Loading Podcast YouTube channel. I had a co-host to start the show named Justin, and we actually did Let's Plays on YouTube. They weren't great. They're not good. You can watch them if you want to, but they're not good. So we started that, and we started the podcast all around the same time. And we chose Still Loading just because trying to find something video game related, and we thought it'd be kind of funny, like Still Loading. And of course I get a million jokes like, hey, is your podcast loaded yet? Is it still there? Is it still loading? I'm like, oh, yes, it is.
Even after 8 years, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's still.
It will always be.
It's never going to be at 100. I'm never going to make it to 100. It's still loading. So that's kind of where it started. And then life got busy, and Justin kind of fell off. Like, him and I are still best friends, but he's just not a permanent co-host for the podcast. So I had to start going solo. And so we were trying to figure out, like, I was really into, back then it was before like video essays really took off on YouTube. So I was obsessed with trying to find video essays about video games, something that was like a really analytical look at game design and what made games tick. So I tried to kind of take that for the podcast. In one of our earliest episodes, we talk about like the role of music in video games. And in all honesty, it's not a great episode, not only because it's early, but also we regurgitate a lot of points that other people made, and they're the ones that made it first. Like, we shout them out, but it's still like, go watch them. And like, why would you bother listening to us if you can just go watch the original source, you know? So a lot of that was kind of like what the goal was to start. We just kind of wanted to find a way to talk about our love of video games and try different things. So then Justin fell off, and I started trying to do everything solo. And that was really difficult because I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. It was so hard for me to come up with topic ideas. And so what would happen is, like, the first year we maybe did we were trying weekly, and we would go weekly for like maybe 2 to 3 months. And then there'd be like a 9-month hiatus. And then I'd be weekly for another 2 to 3 months. And then it'd be like a year hiatus. And it wasn't until 2017 that I was like, let me really give this a serious try. Let me sit down and really focus in and try to do this. And in 2017, I decided, like, well, instead of weekly, I'm going to go bi-weekly and start from there. And that way it gives me time. So that way, if I can't come up with a topic, I don't have to rush and be stressed and anxious that I don't have a topic ready in time for a week. And then it was still hard to come up with topics. So then I was like, well, what if I plan out everything well in advance? And that's when I came up with the 40 for 40 series, which was, I had at the time, it was like 2018 or something like that. I had gotten 32 complete in the box NES games that I bought from a coworker of mine. And I had 8 other complete in the box NES games. So I decided, what if I did a series on these 40 games, whether they're good or bad? I don't care what they are. Some of them were huge, like Super Mario 3, Mega Man 3. Some of them were complete shit, like Dirty Harry, like the Clint Eastwood movie, Dirty Harry, you know, like something that's totally geared towards kids, a movie that came out a decade prior to the game being released, and it's R-rated. So it's totally up the alley for every kid in the 80s.
Absolutely. A must buy.
NES was weird, man.
Yeah.
So I know that kind of goes more than what you were asking. It went from the origins of how it started and kind of where it's up to now. But that 40 for 40 series taught me how to podcast, and the rest is pretty much history from there.
Yeah, I feel that because with my original show, SideQuesting Podcast, I had a similar experience where I did it with my co-host Tom, and just at any given time, you know, he'd be busy, I'd be busy. I'd try to carry some episodes solo. He'd try to carry some episodes solo. So yeah, there was always like a constantly changing dynamic there. And yeah, 9 months into it, like we went on hiatus and I came back with this show. And so yeah, I can it's obviously not a length of time, but I can definitely relate to your journey a little bit. And yeah, trying to do something by yourself to fill, like I like to have my episodes at least be like an hour and a half. I feel like that's kind of a bread and butter zone for podcasts, I feel. But to fill that much time of just you speaking that's quite an endeavor.
It's really difficult. It's really difficult.
So that was kind of my motivation for this show. Is I was like, okay, I want to have other people on and just kind of talk, and then I don't have to. The pressure's not all on me to carry the entire show by myself. So
I'll talk
really great.
People's fucking ears off. I mean, we're 30 minutes in, and on your outline, we're at the first question.
Hey, that's totally fine. The outline is not set in stone. I told you that already, so it's totally fine. But so looking at, and obviously I have not accomplished this yet because you have a lot of backlog of show. I've been trying to go back and listen to a lot of them, but you have a lot of content on your feed, which is awesome. A little more recently, you do so many different things, like you said, the 40 for 40 thing, or recently you did one of my favorite things that I've heard is you did a whole month of March on Mario speedrunning. You did the history of RTS. You do Captain N episodes. How do you kind of come up with your ideas, or how do you come up with say this is a good idea for a show, and this is something I want to do to keep coming up with these unique ideas? Because I've never, example, last episode, the Final Fantasy draft. I've never heard anything like that. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I don't know. I don't really know. It's pretty much just I'll be out in the world and something will pique my interest, and like the Captain N, for example, that started because I became friends with my co-host for that series, Dexter Morrill, and he was on my podcast in 2020 because he was starting to write a kids book series on video game history. It was meant to be a video game history series for young children so they can learn in a fun way about video game history. And he's an illustrator. He's super fucking talented. So he's really good. And we kind of hit it off, and we were just chatting back and forth, and I had him on a couple months later, and we talked about video game history, and we talked about what we kind of consider, basically kind of taking a page out of the Video Game History Foundation, like what are the pillars of video game history and video game preservation and stuff like that, which that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But we kind of hit it off, and then he was showing me, I don't remember exactly how it came to be, but he was mentioning how much he loved the Captain N cartoon. And then I was like, man, someone should do a rewatch series of that. And I was like, wait, why don't I just do a rewatch series?
Yeah, I can do that. I have a thing.
And so I decided to do it once a month. I skipped March because of Mario month, but once a month because I could burn some people out, especially if you don't give a shit about the cartoon, that's going to turn off half the audience, especially for a show like mine where it's random topics every week just about. So instead of doing that, because if I just start doing that exclusively and I do all, let's say, I think there's 26, 30 some odd episodes total, that's almost a year of content in a row that I would just lose half my audience unless if they really didn't like this Captain N thing. So if I do it once a month, it makes it easier for Dexter and I, because we're both parents, so it's, we got to make time. Our schedules are chaos. And so we kind of went from there, and that's kind of how Captain N started, actually, because this is it's coming out next week, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be out next Wednesday.
So the next Captain N episode is coming out this coming Sunday at the time of recording. So it'll be out 3 or 4 days. It'll just come out by the time this episode releases. And then
super topical, perfect.
And then the end of season 1, we're planning something big. I'll kind of tease it on here. I haven't even teased it on my own podcast. What we're going to do, because the end of season 1 will be in June. That's because there's 13 episodes in season 1. So it'll be the second week of June that airs. And on my Twitch stream, I'm going to binge watch the entire first season of Captain N live on Twitch and do a full watch party from 8 p.m. Like whenever I start streaming, 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern till whenever it finishes, like 1 or 2 a.m.
That's awesome.
And then when the last episode ends, I normally release at like 7 p.m. on Sundays. I'm going to release the episode. I'm going to click like publish right as the last episode ends on that Sunday, early that Sunday morning. So
that's super cool.
I've already planned that out, and Dexter is working on a T-shirt for merch for it, so there'll be a Captain Ed T-shirt. I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so stuff like that. It's just to kind of go back to, because I tangent all over the place. To go back to your original question, like where do these ideas come from? It's just random shit that pop, like something will just show up. I'm like, that seems interesting. How can I turn that into a podcast episode? And the fantasy draft episode, I can't take full credit for. There's a James Bond podcast I like that did the same thing, but for James Bond. they each got to draft a Bond actor, like who gets Sean Connery, who gets Roger Moore, so on and so forth. And I was like, well, I really like what they did here. I never would have thought of a fantasy draft for like a movie franchise or like a fictional franchise. How could I apply that to video games? And then I was thinking, well, what game series has enough variety that I could do that with? And then Final Fantasy Draft kind of came to be. Everything else, it's just stuff that I find interesting that I wish more people talked about. Same with the RTS thing. Nobody talks about RTS games on podcasts, at least not the ones that I listen to. 90% of gaming podcasts are just news podcasts, and the others they're usually pretty unique, but like it's a lot. The vast majority are just news, and I mean I can get the news from anywhere. So I'm trying, I always try to find stuff that is interesting to me that no one else seems to be talking about, even if it's not going to give me any numbers. My RTS series was garbage on numbers, but I loved doing it because I wanted to learn about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing too about not being beholden to anybody, is that you can kind of do what you want regardless, because I think that's super fascinating. Especially I recently been learning a lot about speedrunning thanks to watching somebody who was mentioned on every single episode, Summoning Salt, of your series.
Yeah,
every single episode. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch his videos yet, they're spectacular. Straight up like historian of speedrunning. It's fascinating. And that was super cool. So, but yeah, that's the great thing, where it's just like anything that you think is interesting enough can be content. It doesn't matter. Just and that links back really to the why not attitude, right? So it's like, well, why not? Why can't this be a thing that we talk about? Why can't this be something that I can make an episode about? I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's fun to do, because then you can find things that like you don't think anyone else would really talk about. The Final Fantasy Draft episode specifically, I had on the back burner for a year. I started reaching out to people over a year ago, and I got a bunch of interested parties, but no one would throw out dates to be like, I was like, all right, what dates are, like, when are you available? And it took so long until finally I was like, all right, let's shoot for this weekend. Can you do this weekend? And once everyone said yes, I'm like, fucking sold. We're doing it. Lock it in. And then we recorded for like 3 hours. And oh my gosh, that was legitimately, I think, my favorite episode I've ever done. I'm not even saying that just because I've gotten a good response to it, but it's because I was literally smiling the entire time I was editing it. It was so fun.
Scheduling will forever be the bane of everybody that does the type of stuff really that we do.
It's really tough.
Human beings don't like to schedule things for whatever reason, despite the fact that our entire lives are run by schedules. It's very strange. It's very strange to get people to commit to anything. Very cool. So in your experience, in your longtime experience doing the podcast here, I like to ask this question because it's something that I've experienced just doing like a show for a year and a half. Is there anything you've learned kind of about your tastes in gaming in general? Do you have any opinions that you kind of held, or any likes that you held, or just anything that you kind of had going into the show so long ago and that you kind of changed your opinions on? I'm sure like they've evolved over time, obviously, but if that question kind of makes any sense.
I think what I've realized is that what games I actually like is very limited. Like the games that I truly love are so few and far between, and that's not an indictment of any specific game or genre. I'm just realizing that maybe I I'm very positive about all games because I've learned that a lot of games aren't for me. It's like there's games that like I will begrudgingly play, not because of any, and this isn't like Dark Souls, so this isn't me referencing back to that, but like Ni no Kuni, for example, there I'm enjoying the game, but there's been numerous times where like if I wasn't doing this for the stream, I would have stopped playing it by now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that in playing games for this for the podcast, that threshold is very easy for me to hit, and I don't like that about myself. I don't like that I get bored of games really quickly. So I'd say the biggest thing that I learned about myself through this is that I need to expand my horizons more, because I need to force myself to play games even when my boredom, when I've already become bored with it, because 9 times out of, I shouldn't say that much, but more often than not, I will find something else about the game that I ended up really liking. Perfect example, Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe it was me being a contrarian once again. Maybe it was the controls. Rockstar has not updated the controls on their games in a long time, but
no, they're awful.
I was so ready to hate the game because I don't like Rockstar games in general, and it's not because Rockstar makes bad games. It's just because I wasn't allowed to play them as a kid because growing up in a conservative household plus Grand Theft Auto equals no, that's bad, and 2, it just like the gameplay every time I tried to play it just didn't really appeal to me all that much. And Red Dead Redemption 2, actually my guest for when I did Red Dead Redemption 2, you can ask her. I mean, I don't think we have it saved anymore, but my text message conversations with her of like when I first started playing it, I was nitpicking the game to death and like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And as I forced myself to play through it, I ended up liking it more and more and more. And now it's legitimately in like my top 5 of all time. Like it is so good. And I can't imagine disliking it the way I was when I first started. So I think more than anything is that I need to expand my horizons because I get bored of games really quickly and I don't give them enough of a chance to really shine. And that's what I've learned about myself. It's not necessarily that I like one genre more than the other. It's that I need to give every game that I play more of a chance than I have in the past.
I think that's interesting because I've kind of experienced the same thing too, not only on the expand my horizons end, but on the, I guess, like you were explaining with Red Dead Redemption 2, I also played Red Dead Redemption 2. I thought it was really great. I got like 70% of the way through it, and then I just never went back to it one day, and I didn't really care. It wasn't the fact that I didn't like the game. I thought the game was really great. It was very enjoyable. But I think, like you said, there's a really fine line between games that you will like absolutely, absolutely love,
Mm-hmm.
and games that you will just enjoy and like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's okay, and you don't have to love every game. You don't have to.
No, it's just
devote
I don't think
hundreds
I give
of hours to
enough
every
time,
game.
like I don't feel like I
Right.
give them enough time before I pass a final judgment. Like even when I was playing Dark Souls, like if I was going by that, I would have given up a while ago, and not just because of the difficulty, just because like there was so many moments where like, man, I don't feel like going through this again and doing this again. And then I would get to another moment. I'm like, wow, I really like this spot. Like I really like how this feels. And it's the same with Ni no Kuni. I've had a lot of bored spots, and now like I had a really good stream last night where I was playing and I played for like 2.5 hours and I got really far and I'm kind of sucked back into it again. So it's just, it's like you're saying, it's not that you will always draw a line like, yeah, this game's just not for me. You will find those lines when you're playing a game, but it's just making sure you're giving each game enough of a chance. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that, that is very important to do that. I can use Kirby as an example very much, where I played through all of Kirby. I thought it was really great. It was fun. I wouldn't say that I loved it. It was enjoyable. I don't think I'll probably ever go back to it. Probably won't play it again. I'm glad I got to experience it, but it wasn't something that I can say like I love and I want to continue putting time into it. I want to put hours into it. Like you have very few of those games, I think, that come into your life throughout your life that you're willing to devote that much time to. And so I've kind of been caught in between this rut where I want to experience more things, but I've gotten burned experiencing things that I didn't enjoy just because like they were coming out, or was like, this is the thing to be playing right now, or the noise around it, everyone was saying, this is so great, you have to play it, when I kind of knew in my heart that I wouldn't actually enjoy it, but I felt like I almost had to play it because everyone else was. And it's kind of where I am with like Dark Souls and FromSoft games. I've played them before. I've always bounced off of them, not because I hated them, but the pressure to play them because of the conversation around them is so great. I want to make sure that it's something I want to do before I pursue that. And that's kind of where I am, if that makes any sense.
And those games specifically, because of the culture around them, the community around them, I'm legit like super anxious for half the comments I made at the beginning of the episode, because people are so protective of the series. Like, and I'm not like, and I it's literally been running in my head over and over throughout this whole episode. I'm trying to push it out, but it's one of those things when there's a community like that around a game, it can be hard. It can be intimidating because most people are willing to help you. In fact, actually the Dark Souls community is bizarre, where it's like they will eat you alive if you hate the game, but if you're willing to try it, they will bend over backwards to help you. It's a very strange dichotomy from what I've seen online. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It can be like when there's a game that's in the public conscious and it's in the zeitgeist, it can be really overwhelming sometimes, especially when there's like right now, like just off the top of my head, Elden Ring, Tunic, Kirby Forgotten Land, and even like Pokemon Arceus. I don't own any of them, and they all seem really interesting. And I can't really justify spending the money on any of them right now. So it's like I'm kind of missing out on it, but I kind of gotten used to not spending money on new titles. So
exactly. Elden Ring specifically, I mean, like I said, I've never traditionally been a FromSoft guy, but when it came out, just the gravity of that game when it came out was so huge.
It's infectious almost.
I literally was on like the page to buy it, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't normally play FromSoft games. Like, I've always bounced off them. Why am I doing this? But just the gravity when it came out was so enormous. I just felt like I couldn't miss out on it. Like if I was doing myself a disservice if I missed out on it. It was something that I don't really experience a lot these days is kind of, but that game, I mean, gravity is the only word I can think of to how to describe that. The gravity it wanted to pull you in.
Yeah.
The last time I felt like that
Dark
was
Souls. Elden Ring got me to play Dark Souls 1. Simple enough said.
And that's the only other time I felt like that last time was I've famously have said on this show before that I wasn't really into Zelda before Breath of the Wild, but just that game came out and there was so much gravity around it. I had to experience it. It's like, so that's a very interesting kind of, you want to be part. It's like, it's FOMO, I guess, right? You don't want to miss out because that's the thing that's going on. And that's just the pressure of the culture we live in today. It's not bad. I don't feel now. I'm glad I didn't buy Elden Ring because I know that I'm not ready for it right now, but I might be in the future, but just right now. I'm happy I didn't give into the pressure and just buy it and blow $60 on it. So, okay. So I want to ask you, when people come and listen to your show and they reach out to you and say that they listened to an episode, what is something you want them to take away from listening to an episode? Is there kind of anything you hope that people take away from listening to your show?
I guess one is a passion for video game history. And I know not all of my episodes, in fact, a lot of my episodes don't focus on game history, but I'd like to think that people who listen to my show frequently know, like, I really like to talk about video game history and I really like to share tidbits about games because I said it on my video game history episode, talking about video game preservation, where video games are a medium that have dramatically affected people's lives, and it's part of our culture now, and so it should be preserved because it's not a passing fad anymore. And even if it is a passing fad, like usually a fad has some type of like cultural relevance as well, but it's not a fad. It's larger than that. So I feel like it should be preserved. So I really hope that people get that from my podcast, whether it's me doing a goofy 2.5 hour Final Fantasy draft episode, or if it's like talking about that stupid cartoon Captain N. God, I love that cartoon now. Or if it's something actually like beneficially like in like educational, maybe, you know, learning about how Oregon Trail was actually like literally it wasn't a video game technically. It was a computer game that was played off of teletype computers that would print out your responses. Like you would type in a command to you would type in a prompt to the computer, and since there was no screen, it would literally print out its response on paper to you, and that's how you played Oregon Trail initially. And it was developed by like 3 teachers for like a student teaching program and stuff like that. Like stuff like that. Like I find that super interesting. And so I hope listeners would get that out of it. And I guess on a more selfish level, I just hope that people get to know me, and hopefully not in a weird or creepy way, but just know how I try to be as genuine as possible on my podcast.
Intimately.
Yeah, intimate, right? I try to be as genuine as possible on my podcast, and I really try to show who I am as a person. So I hope that they get to know me and hopefully like me. Like I said, I haven't had any haters yet, but maybe my Dark Souls comments will bring me my first negative reviews. We'll see. So yeah, I'd say those are the 2 things.
I feel that there is a strange kind of hope that you have, whatever you decide to approach your podcast topic about, whether it could be like literally anything. It doesn't even have to be video games, but there is that kind of secondary sense in the back here that you hope that people listen do get to know you, and you want to express your true, genuine self, which I didn't really think about until you brought it up, and is interesting because I consider myself a very introverted person. I don't really like interacting with people if I don't have to, but yet here I have a show where I'm like spilling my guts out to random people that some people listen, and I have what I would consider like a circle of friends, including you, that I've met doing this that I never would have met before. So it's very strange and very interesting, and something that is definitely one of the most enjoyable aspects about doing this. I agree.
Well, I think podcasting is a very it's a perfect medium for introverts. I'm actually an introvert myself, but I'm pretty social. Like I'm pretty good with people. But to me, introverts isn't necessarily, do you like being alone, or are you a social outcast, or are you a social butterfly? It's more, where do you get your energy from? Like you can have social introverts. Like I'm a social introvert. I like being periodically I like being, you know, like quote unquote the life of the party. Not saying I would ever be that. That sounds really even nerdy saying that, but like I like people paying attention to me. You know, that feels good to an extent. But I don't get my energy from that. Like I feel exhausted after going to a party. Some people feel energized after going to a party. My brother is an extrovert. He can't sit still. He has to be like, he's always trying to hang out with people, always trying to spend time with friends, because he gets his energy from people. He gets his energy from the people he surrounds himself with. I get my energy from being able to play video games by myself, from being able to relax and watch a Twitch stream on my computer, or edit a podcast episode. Like when I have a stressful day at work, I have to come home, take care of my kid, and as soon as my kid's asleep, my wife and I are both introverts. Like she will actually do our own things, but separately, because it's not because we love spending time with each other, but at the same time, we really like our own time. We like being able to just like not worry about someone else and just focus on ourselves. And it's a little bit selfish, I guess, in some elements, but introverts and extroverts is just where you get your energy from. You know, do you get your energy from alone time, giggity, or do you get your energy from you know, people, from other people, from friends and stuff like that? So I think podcasts are perfect for introverts, because introverts also, they generally do better with one-on-one conversations. You're in a much more intimate setting, and it's a lot more easy to open up to somebody when you're having a one-on-one conversation. I couldn't have these types of conversations with, like, if there's a group of people watching necessarily. And if I did, I'd have to mentally prep myself for it. And I say all this, and I just announced somewhat recently I'm doing my first ever panel at a convention, so that'll be interesting. But even then, that's like something that I have to work up towards. I'm not even necessarily anxious. It's just, you know, I don't get my energy from that, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And that is a good way to look at it. And thinking, I'm very much the same way too. Yeah, I do enjoy going out, but after that, I am exhausted.
Yeah.
And if it's a long day, yeah, I would very much rather recharge by, playing a game or just not having to interact or talk to anybody really. So that's an excellent way of looking at it. So in your length of time doing the show here, do you have any kind of experiences that stick out as some of your favorite? I know you've done a lot and you've interviewed a lot of great people. Do you have any kind of that stick out?
You mean like favorite episodes or just favorite moments in general, whether the episode turned out well or not, type of thing?
Favorite moments. It's a person that came on or something that happened, or just anything to do with the show.
One, the episode I had with my wife, because my wife, for those who listen to my show, knows famously she's not into video games or any of the geek culture. So when I had her on to do Stardew Valley, that meant a lot to me because that game meant a lot to us when we were planning our wedding, or it meant a lot to me when we were planning our wedding. Because it was like how her and I relaxed. We got to watch each other build our own farms. It was a lot of fun. So that episode sticks out to me. That makes me happy to just think about. The other ones, I would say, when I had Sissy Jones on, because I've developed a little bit of a friendship with Sissy Jones. She's a voice, for those who don't know, she's a voice actress for Delilah from Firewatch. She was also the voice actress of Lilith in the Disney show The Owl House, which is a really good cartoon, by the way. It's definitely worth checking out. Sissy Jones is awesome. I'm so grateful I got to meet her and talk to her, and I guess she said I could do this. It still feels weird because I've only talked to her a handful of times, so we have corresponded a bit over email, but it's cool to call her a friend. If she's ever in the area, or I can for some reason make it out to a convention in California that she's at, we would probably go and catch up on lunch or something like that. I mean, who knows? That's been really cool. Being able to meet people in the industry, I think that's more than anything, more than specific. Sissy Jones is the person I've gotten to know the best through, in terms of people in the industry from the podcast, but getting to meet cool people that I never thought I would ever get to meet. I would say that's probably been one of my favorite elements. And then also, more importantly, the most thing I've gotten out is meeting cool people like you and all the other podcasting friends that I've made.
Oh, stop.
No, I'm genuinely serious. It's really cool to meet people from all over the world. I've become friends with Mike and Neil from the GameCube Was Cool podcast. They're from Canada. This is actually getting recorded in a couple days. I'm getting to know this podcaster from Japan. The Tokyo Game Life is his podcast. His name is Mono. Really interesting podcast because it's all about him going to gaming exhibits in Tokyo and or in Japan, and just talking about his experiences at these things that we don't see over here in the US, or going to the Sega arcade and talking about the arcade there. I forget in which district in Tokyo, but it's really interesting. I'm going to have him on the podcast, but it's stuff like that where it's really cool, obviously, to meet the people in the industry, but it's also been really cool to build relationships with other podcasters and kind of become friends with everyone. It's been real. I think that's my favorite element of it.
Cool. I can kind of piggyback off that. So one of the things I did want to ask you being on the show is you do have a lot of really awesome guests that you get to come on, experts that talk about specific topics and stuff. Doing this show, it was a big emphasis for me to want to have more people on. So, and I find that I have a lot of anxiety asking people to come on the show. So I was going to ask for me or for anybody else, do you have any kind of advice about how to approach that, about asking somebody that you want to be on the show, whether or not you may or may not know them?
I think the first hurdle is to understand that almost everyone likes to talk about themselves. Every single person likes to talk about themselves. There are very few who don't, and most people are willing to come on because they want to. Second, it never hurt. What's the worst they're going to say? No. The thing is I feel because I had a similar hang up as you, where it's I go, why would they come on my show? It's so small and whatever. And that, when I first had my first person, quote unquote, in the game industry, it was actually legitimate. It was Austin Wintory, the composer of Journey.
Oh, wow.
And he did an Assassin's Creed game. He's now on the Play Watch Listen podcast with Troy Baker, Alana Pierce. Is Pierce? Is that Alana's last name?
Yeah.
No. Is it Pierce her last name?
It is Pierce.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
She works for Santa Monica now.
Yeah, I was like blanking. I'm like, am I just butchering her last name? And then Mike. Oh, I'm blanking on his last name. I can't remember Mike Bithell. That's it. So this was like years before he joined that podcast, but it was the whole way I even got him on. I was just like, I really like Journey and I want to talk. I love the music from it. Austin seems someone who's like a little bit smaller. Maybe he'll say yes. Found his personal website, found his email, his contact on his personal website, and I just shot him an email. And then I didn't get a response for a couple months, and I was like, oh, no harm, no foul. Maybe he saw it was like, no, thank you, and bye. And that's fine. Like, the thing I've realized is that if you ask, the only impression that I've gotten from people who say no is just, I don't know this person, so I'm not going to do it. And it's never like an indictment of you as a person. Like, they don't hate you for asking. They just say no. Simple as that. Like, for some reason in my head, I always felt like, what if they think I'm like annoying for asking type of thing? Right. And it's like, no, just ask. Like, you could be annoying if you keep pestering them, but I only usually email once and that's about it. But he didn't respond. I was like, all right, no harm, no foul. And then a couple months later, I think I emailed him in like January of like 2018 or 2019 or something. I think it was 2019. And then a couple months later, I get an email back from him. He's like, hey, sorry it took so long to respond. I'd love to come onto your show and talk about it. And usually it's because they want to promote something. So you can use, I use that like, hey, do you want to promote anything on the show? Because I forget what he was promoting, a game called Erica, which is like it was an FMV game, but like a modern one. It's actually really good. I played it somewhat recently. It's actually really, really good. And so he was on to talk about that, but so I got in touch with him. He's like, here, schedule this through my PR people, and that because they're the one that knows my schedule. I'm like, okay. So he gives me in touch with his PR person, and I have this PR person's email. And then a week later, I get an email from the PR person. Hey, would you be interested in interviewing this composer from this upcoming indie game to talk to about? I'm like, all right, sure. And it turns out it was Andrew Prallo who did the soundtrack to Outer Wilds, which ended up winning BAFTA for Game of the Year, like a little bit later. Andrew is a super cool dude. Him and I ended up having a lot in common. We both like Comedy Bang Bang. We both like improv comedy and stuff like that. And because of that one interaction, I got put on a list. I got put on this PR company's list, and they would periodically send me emails for interviews. They haven't done that in 2 years, so I'm kind of bummed. Like, did I do something wrong? Like, what happened? And then
because they heard you hated Dark Souls, probably.
Yeah, I guess, right? But then what was even stranger was, I think it was in 2020, I got an email from a completely different PR company that I've never been in contact with. And
they share email lists. They hand them around.
I guess so, because I don't know how this dude got my email, but he emailed me and I missed it for like a week. It was in my spam folder. So now I'm always checking my spam folder religiously. And it turns out he was the PR guy for Gareth Coker, who's the composer for Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Wow.
So I can trace all of those composers back to sending one email in the winter, in January of 2019, just being like, what if he says yes? And Austin said, why not? And the rest kind of came from there. So like, it's not like I did anything big. It's not like my podcast was big and then they said yes because of it. I just started asking and people just said yes. It's as simple as that. You don't really know. Same the way I got Sissy Jones on the podcast. I found her website and I emailed her. That's all there is to it. I have found, I would say for any of because I know a lot of podcasters listen to your show. A lot of our podcasting friends listen to your show. Mm-hmm. For those who are like curious, just I personally found emails are the best. DMs are so hard to get responses from because people get a lot of DMs. I actually almost got a voice actress on the show for by DMing them on Instagram, and then the week we were going to record, her dog died.
Oh,
And I was like, well, I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. Don't worry about this. I'll reach out to you later. And it's been 3 months. I might reach out to her soon. But I
okay.
wanted to make sure she had because it's heartbreaking. You're dealing with a loss of a family member, and here I am, be like, hey, so when do you want to come on and talk about?
You still going to come on the podcast?
You still come on the podcast and talk about like your role in this game. But I would say like emails is like a really surprisingly easy way to get a hold of someone if you can find it. It can be hard to get people's emails. So yeah, I would definitely that would be my advice. And I know I kind of went into a story, so hopefully people found that interesting. But yeah, just email people. You never know what you're going to get. The worst they can say is no. And I know that's the most stereotypical cliche expression ever. But after, emailing people, it's true. And I actually reached out to the dude who played Averman from the Mighty Ducks movies because I wanted to get him on the show because I love the Mighty Ducks. I was like, well, is there a Mighty Ducks game? There technically is a Tiger Electronics handheld based off the cartoon. And I'm like, well, that counts close enough.
Yeah, it's qualifying.
And so he responded and politely said no. I'm like, all right, fair enough. No harm, no foul. And
it's nice that he even responded, though.
I mean, said, thank you for responding. No problem. Hope you're doing well, and good luck to you, whatever your endeavors are. So simple as that. So just email people. Just contact them. Doesn't hurt. The worst they can say is no.
Wow. That's amazing. Do you have, I think you've mentioned this on the show before. Do you have somebody who would be like your dream guest that you absolutely like, that's your highest goal? Like that would just make everything. I think you've mentioned it on the show before. I just don't remember if you have or not.
I would say I had two, but one I'm kind of disappointed with right now that I don't want to put them on blast right now, so I'm going to save that.
Okay.
But one that I've never been disappointed with, Matt Gorley. Matt Gorley he's not really in the video game sphere. He's kind of more he's an actor. He's a very well-known podcaster. He's done the James Bond podcast that I like, James Bonding. He has done he's actually the producer on Conan O'Brien's podcast, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. He does a lot of podcasts with a comedian I love named Andy Daly. And Matt Gorley he seems so genuine and so nice, and he seems so down to earth, and he's so funny. He's incredibly funny. And I would love to have him on to talk about James Bond games because he's a huge James Bond fan. And I would just adore having him on. And I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to. I would love, he would be my dream cast. Like if I ever got a chance to have Matt Gorley on the podcast, I would faint.
That'd be very cool. I'll share mine. I've always said that my lofty goal one day is I would always love to have Reggie on.
Reggie Fils-Aimé.
And interview Reggie. I think that just to pick his brain, just talk about his journey, where he came from. I think that would be super fascinating. I've always loved him. I've always looked up to him. I think that would be, if one day, if I was just to end the podcast, or just I could say I could walk away happy, that would be the one for me for sure, Reggie. So, do you have any big plans for the show? I mean, you've teased some stuff that you're doing, which is really cool, as a panel and stuff. And do you have any other big plans for the show coming up in the future as we kind of wrap up a segment on the show here?
Believe it or not, no. A lot of my ideas are very on the off the cuff, like it's kind of on the fly. Like right now, I'm planning all my episodes for May. I already have everything in April recorded. So actually, it'll be really cool. An episode that I have coming out, it'll be when this episode releases, it'll be my next one. It'll be coming out in a couple days on the Sunday after this releases. I had a guy on named Howie Rubin, and how I teased this on like an Instagram story or in a tweet or something like that. He worked at Atari Coin-Op in the 70s, and he also created Jollyco USA. And Jollyco is a fairly famous publisher and developer of games on the NES. They did Bases Loaded on the NES. They brought Maniac Mansion over to the NES. They licensed Maniac Mansion to publish it on the NES. He's also worked with Mattel. He's done a ton of stuff, and that all came about because I got asked to do an AMA on this new social media app called Swell. And he randomly responded to a chain I was tagged in. And I was like, holy shit, this guy worked in Atari Coin Op. I got to get him on the show. So I'm very excited for that. That's an episode I actually just finished editing the other night. It turned out really well. So I'm really looking forward to that. He tells a really funny story about Maniac Mansion that I don't want to spoil here because I think it's really worth listening to. It's so funny. But other than that, like I have ideas of games I want to talk about. Like I'm thinking of doing an episode on The World Ends With You soon, just because I really like that game and I beat it for the first time a year ago or so. And I think it'd be cool to talk about. But other than just like trying to get cool people on and trying to figure out what I want to do for the rest of May and June, that's pretty much it. I have the panel coming up at the end of May, and then I have the big end of season 1 Captain N event in June. So
definitely sounds like some exciting stuff for sure. And I'll definitely be there listening every step of the way. So very, very excited for all that. Thank you so much for sharing all that information about your show, Josh. Really appreciate it. I want to pivot, as you said earlier in the show. Everybody loves talking about themselves, so I want to talk a little bit more about you specifically.
I mean, I've been talking about myself this whole time, so I don't know.
Let's just keep the train rolling.
Okay.
It's totally fine. Yeah. So I just wanted to ask a little bit more specifically. Obviously, the show is about video games. I wanted to ask, what has your personal journey been with gaming in your life? What has it meant to you? Where did it start? And, where's it kind of brought you to?
Oh man. So gaming on a personal level, I don't have words to describe how much video games mean to me. I tried to do it when I did my 200th episode. I tried to write like a little closing speech to the 200th episode to describe like why I get so emotional about games. And it's weird because specific games don't always make me emotional, but it's almost like the idea of what video games are makes me emotional. The idea of these experiences that can be so unique and so individual to everyone on a personal level, it really makes me emotional. This is the cheesiest fucking thing. I will legit sometimes, if I'm feeling extra emotional one night, I will literally look at the NES, my NES or my Super Nintendo, right? And I will be like, how many people, like, this thing is a box to like 1,000 different worlds that somebody just popped a cartridge in and got to experience an entirely different life for a few hours, whether that's playing through Final Fantasy VII on your PS1 or playing through Mega Man X on your Super Nintendo or Castlevania on your NES. Like, there's these little miniature worlds that have all like their own physics and their own characters and their own storylines, and it's this completely different place that you can just go to. Like, you can just completely abandon your life for a little bit and go into this place, and there's something so fleshed out and real feeling, even if it's a cartoony game. Even if it's a cartoony game, it I don't know, like, for some reason it makes me emotional thinking about it. Like, the idea of like what games are is just incredible to me. And on a personal level, that's what they mean to me. On individual games, like, very few games on an individual level make me like have really hit me with emotions. I would say Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 and 10. Those were the ones that like really got in my emo high school years, like super emo high school years. Those really spoke to me a lot. But since then, very few games like really like. I think the last game that I had to literally stop because I was about to cry was the beginning of Ori and the Blind Forest. And for those who haven't played it, this is not a spoiler. I will not spoil that intro to you. It's like the first 10 minutes of Up. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not in terms of direct comparisons of like, it's not like the same thing, but in terms of emotional gut punch, I was devastated by the first 10 minutes of Ori and the Blind Forest because I was not expecting it at all. Yeah, I kind of once again went on a rant, but I think that's really that's what games mean to me, and where gaming started for me was, you know, I have two specific memories that I'll harken back to, and then I'll end this rant, or end this tangent, I guess. One, I was at a church friend's house, and they had Mario on. They were playing Mario, I think 1 or 3. I can't remember which. I think it was 3. And I remember them playing it and handing me the controller, and I started playing it. I was like, whoa, this is a cartoon that I can control. And it was the first time I was just like, I was blown away. I'm like, this looks like the cartoons that I watch, but I get to tell the TV what to do? Like, that's amazing. It blew my mind. I couldn't wrap my head, or my little 4 or 5-year-old brain just couldn't wrap its head around it. Maybe 6. I don't fucking remember. I was little.
It was a long time ago.
And then the second one is the first game that I remember playing like in my house. There's a game called Power Pete, which no one knows about. It's it was a Macintosh game. You could only get it on Mac. It was later called Mighty Mike, which I think Power Pete's better, but you know, maybe that's just nostalgia bias. But it's a top-down shoot 'em up, and it's fascinating. It's like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a proto Ratchet and Clank, where there's like 50 or 60 different weapons, and they're all kind of goofy and zany. And you play as this action figure named Power Pete trying to fight his way through a toy store to save these toy bunnies. It's really goofy, but it's incredibly fun. You can actually, I was able to find a legitimate legal copy that you can just download to your computer. You don't have to.
Wow.
And it's ported to PC. Like, you don't have to download like a Mac emulator or anything. The company that owns the copyright went out of business, but they keep the website up and they just give it out for free.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's incredible. I definitely, feel you when you talk about. I've always believed that games are an escape, as much as like people say you can escape into the world of a book or a show or a movie that you're watching. I never thought of it quite so literally the way you have, and that was beautiful. Like, I genuinely, when you were describing it, I genuinely had a tear in my eye. I had to like wipe away. That was stunning, and kind of what I'm looking for on this show is for people to describe to me like those feelings. So thank you.
That's the first time I think I was able to somewhat adequately describe my feelings about video games.
It was awesome. And I agree with you. That intro section to Ori and the Blind Forest is devastating. I hate the person that designed it, or the people, because it's so
I wasn't
moving.
expecting it. And the worst part is now
so
anyone
moving.
who hasn't played it that listens to it now, it's not going to hit them as hard, because you need to go into that game with absolutely no knowledge of what that intro is going to be, because then it happens and you're like, what the hell is going on? What just happened?
And I experienced the similar thing that you did too. It's like I have very few games where I have like that visceral of an emotional reaction to something. I always cite the example, people on my show know, Kingdom Hearts every single time, for better or for worse, whatever reason. I cried at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, legitimately, like for about 3 or 4 minutes while the credits were rolling. I legitimately did. And I remember, just for whatever reason, I have all these emotions connected to Kingdom Hearts. And when they announced Sora as the last character in Super Smash Brothers, again, I genuinely had a tear or two that came out of my eye. I have these emotional connections with this specific game that I don't really have with any other game. Final Fantasy IX is one, probably. There might be a couple others in there if I think about it, but yeah, I genuinely feel that it's incredible that something can evoke such a raw emotion like that.
Well, games, you generally, when people feel nostalgic about games, it's not the game itself that they're nostalgic for. They remember a good memory that they associate that it was happening at the same time as them playing that game. And a lot of times as you get older, it's a lot harder to remember those specific moments, but so it just becomes childhood in general. You just remember the good parts about childhood. You put on those rose-colored glasses and whatnot.
Of course.
Like perfect example, like Final Fantasy VIII, I correlate very much with my discovery of what JRPGs were and are. Even though it was not my first Final Fantasy, I actually I loved that game. I actually had a strategy guide, and I played through the entire game for the first time with a strategy guide. And I think that's why I ended up liking it so much, because it cut out a lot of the bullshit that would have made it a lot less enjoyable if I hadn't had that strategy guide. But Final 7, 8, and 9, I remember playing somewhat back to back when I was like 13 through 15. Like when you're 12 through 15, that's like prime gaming age. That's like when you are old enough that you can play games that are a little bit more mature, and suddenly games are like, whoa, this isn't all just Mario where it's these shallow stories. There's games that have like these dramatic arcs and these characters and everything like that. Like, you know, it's when you kind of realize that there's good storytelling in games, not just the gameplay. And I associate those games specifically with that time in my life, and I associate the Sega Genesis and NES and Super Nintendo and all that stuff with like pre-teen, you know, like 10 and under type of thing. N64 as well. I played a lot of N64. I got an N64 for my 10th birthday, and that's when I stopped hanging out with my neighbors, coincidentally. But people really, you get nostalgic over stuff because like I don't know what was happening in your life when you first started playing Kingdom Hearts, but because you have that strong of emotional reaction, I would assume Kingdom Hearts is either A, like your safety when shit was going south, or B, everything was going really well and it was such a perfect complement to what your emotions were at the time, bad or good. And it just kind of like, so now when you go back to it, you remember that comfort. And you remember how much it meant to you back then, and so it wells up all those emotions now. When Final 7 Remake came out, I mean, I didn't get emotional playing it, but that intro trailer where you see you see like kind of the same intro, but with these nice, beautiful graphics, and then you hear the fully orchestrated that dun 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 dun. I got a little misty-eyed on that, just even though I haven't thought about Final 7 like legitimately. I haven't played it in a long time, but it brought back all those memories of like, that's how much this game meant to me when I was like 12 or 13, and that's really cool.
After the show, I'll be sure to give you my address so you can send me the invoice for this counseling session, because I'm just trying to figure out what my connection to KH was now, but you're really right too. I just thinking about specifically that 12 to 15-year-old range. Your brain's starting to develop in such a way that you appreciate deeper storytelling, and the logical side of your brain, you're able to appreciate more of those kind of deeper themes and just run on and jump on platforms. And it's also the last stage of your life before you start to have like very serious responsibilities. So I assume for most people, I got a job when I was 16 and started working right away. So it's really that last kind of, you're just smart enough to understand like what's starting to fully go on, but you don't have any major responsibilities yet. And before you start to realize, hey, adult life, while it's great, it has its perks. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are significant gray spots, and it can be difficult trying to just do things to survive in this world, not to start having like an existential crisis on air.
As I've always said, adulting is the worst decision I never made.
Exactly. I didn't choose to be born in this world. Come on.
Choose this. It just happened to me. I didn't choose the adult life. The adult life chose me.
Exactly. I'll drink to that very, not heavily because that's very serious, but I'll definitely drink to that. I think we kind of touched on it. Do you have any games specifically that you consider like some of your favorites, or you have those emotional reactions with? I know we touched on it a little bit. Do Do you have any specifically?
I would say the final 7 through 9, like I mentioned before. I would also say Power Pete because it was like one of the first games I really truly remember playing. I would say there's different games for different stages of my life. Minecraft, for example, was when I was in college, and I was still living with my parents though because I went to a community college, and I was still with my parents, and a friend of mine from high school needed a place to stay. So he lived in our basement for like a year and a half, and he would come up, and I'm amazed I'm not insanely overweight because like almost every week we would order a Pizza Hut pizza, usually stuffed crust, have like 12 packs of Mountain Dew. Not all at once, not all on the same night, but we'd have it there ready for us. We would throw scrubs up. I had all the scrubs totally legally downloaded, and I would, of course, I had 2 monitors, or I still do, but I had 2 monitors. I would throw scrubs up on one screen. I would play Minecraft on the other. He would be in the same. He would be there with me, and we would have a little table set up for his laptop, and he'd be playing Minecraft, and we would spend 4 or 5 hours a night just playing Minecraft together on a server, building this city that we would spend hours and hours and hours. So Minecraft holds a super important place in my heart for those types of memories. I think back to Stardew Valley, like I mentioned before, that I remember that from when I was planning my wedding and getting ready for my wedding. If we go back farther than that, I can think of games like Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Hidden Treasure. Reminds me of my neighbors because they owned a Sega Genesis. I did not. I would go over to their house and pester the shit out of them, asking them to play Genesis, and I would want to play that.
So here comes Josh
pretty
again.
much. Though my neighbors, you would think I was the obnoxious. This is, if they listen to this, no shade at any of you. This is something that it makes me laugh. I'm not upset at this. You would think I'd be obnoxious because I'd be the one wanting to go only to hang out with and play with video games, which objectively is bad. Like that's not a cool thing to do, but you're a kid. You don't, that's not the nice thing to do. They would literally come over to our house, knock on the door and say, "Hi, my parents said I could come over." And then we're like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, my parents said I could come over." And we're like, "But we didn't invite you."
Exactly. It's not permission. What?
That's not like, you can't get permission from your parents who come over to our house. That's like me coming over and saying, "Hi, my parents said I could play your Sega Genesis." Like that's
exactly.
It was very strange. They're not strange people. That was just very strange. It makes me laugh now. Like what a goofy thing to do. But like there's games that revolve around those specific times, like Power Pete. I remember I actually equate Power Pete now that I really think about it to when we first got the internet, like dial-up internet.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's aging me a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about, and it's just stuff like that. I even remember like even though I've never beaten it and I've never gotten far, Myst. I remember that game because my mom worked for my grandparents, and before I was in like school in kindergarten and everything, she would take us over to their house to where they were. It was actually a farm, and they had a computer there to do a lot of the bookkeeping and everything. But my uncle also used that for his games, and so he had Myst on there. We would play Myst and Muppet Treasure Island. Oh, Muppet Treasure Island on the PC is amazing. Stuff like that. So I'm just going all over. I'm going down a whole rabbit hole of memory lanes all of a sudden. But
that's fine. I try to drag people down the rabbit hole on this show.
Oh, you didn't have to drag me.
That's the whole goal.
I came willingly.
Yeah, I associate with the start of, I remember dial-up very clearly. And when I was growing up, that was kind of the advent of RuneScape. Mm-hmm. So I associate RuneScape very strongly with dial-up internet because I wanted to play for hours, but during that time, my mom could like make or receive no phone calls because I was hogging the phone line to play RuneScape.
Oh my God, you want to talk about? So when we started getting high-speed internet, we got DSL, but it was still one of those ones where you couldn't be on this phone line at the same. Like it was high speed, but it was still like taking up the phone line.
High speed.
It was high. It was higher than dial-up, but it was still like nowhere near broadband. And I remember I didn't have Xbox Live, but my friend did. and it was on the original Xbox, not the 360 Xbox Live. It was original Xbox, an Xbox Live, and I would have to plug my Xbox into the phone line. There was an adapter that I needed, so if I wanted to play Halo online, no one else could use the phone. I remember that. That's so vividly.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
I don't care if someone's trying to call you. There are more important things happening here. And
of course, my friend wasn't, he wasn't the most honorable Halo player. He did this thing called bridging, where what bridging is that you plug your Xbox in through your computer and then you rapidly turn on and off your internet connection to make everyone else lag except for you.
Interesting.
So he actually had a handful of Xbox Live accounts, because what he would do is he would have people pay him in 3-month subscription cards and to bridge them to higher ranks in Halo 2. So he would he would bridge them. They would get all the kills and get to rank up real fast. And they would pay him in a 3-month Xbox Live subscription. So he would never, I think for a year, he never had to pay for, there was 2 or 3 years he never had to pay for Xbox Live, because he would just cheat people up to the higher ranks.
That's a pretty good system, right? If you're good at something, never do it for free, I think is the saying. So despite how dishonest it might be.
He let me use his one Xbox Live account, and it was called I Lag You Lag. And so every time I did well, everyone automatically assumed I was cheating, even though I'm not the one who was doing the bridging thing. It was him.
But hey, it was a free account. So, I mean, you can't complain, right? So that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about one thing that you do, just based on a lot of your Instagram posts and stuff, and I can just see very clearly behind you, you're an avid game collector.
I am indeed.
So I just kind of wanted to ask, what is that experience like? And I especially wanted to ask it too, because there has been this kind of eye and kind of highlight on collecting communities in general. I would say probably trading cards and video games are probably two of the biggest ones since the pandemic started. And you started hearing all these stories about just prices exploding for things. Like somebody bought what was that one, the sealed copy of Mario 64 for $9 million. It was $2 million or something like that. Yeah. So what has kind of that experience been like?
So I started collecting back before the podcast started. Actually, I started collecting on a whim because I worked at a library, and they have a used book sale every twice a month or something like that. So, and they sell more than just used books. There's used VHSs and DVDs and whatnot. And I remember they had someone donated old video games, and it was a copy of, I want to say, 10-Yard Fight for the NES. Oh no, sorry, Tecmo Bowl for the NES.
Oh, wow.
And then a boxed copy of Sonic the Hedgehog, the original one, but it didn't have the manual. Wow. It actually says not for resale on the box, but the cartridge doesn't say not for resale. So I don't know. But so I got those. I paid $1 a piece for them or something like that. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wasn't really into the retro thing back then, but I'm like, this is kind of cool. It's video games. I like video games. I'll buy these. It's $2. Who cares? And then I started getting into the Angry Video Game Nerd, and then and at first I was kind of like, oh, he just swears a lot. I don't know if this is my cup of tea. And back then I am still fairly religious, but I was extremely religious, to the point where it was probably not healthy. But I just remember being like, oh, I can't watch this. He swears too much or whatever. But then I kept watching anyway. And I ended up getting really interested in some of the stuff he was talking about, all the historical things he was talking about, all the different things that things that I didn't expect that old video game consoles could do. I'm trying to think of the example that really blew my mind and really kind of set it off, that I was like, I want to get into this collecting thing. But it was, I can't remember what exactly was on his show, but I can give at least an anecdote that would be similar. The Sega Genesis could actually go online in the US, and not a lot of people know that. There's a thing called the Sega Channel, and there's actually downloadable games that were exclusive to the Sega Channel in the US. There was games like Pulse Man and Mega Man: The Wily Wars, which did receive physical releases over in Europe, and now they're stupid expensive on the collector's market. But in the US,
Of
the
course.
only way you could get them was by downloading them to your Sega channel cartridge through through a dial-up modem and stuff like that. So that blew my mind that in like the early 90s, Sega Genesis could go online. Like I thought the first console that could go online was the Dreamcast. And that was the first one to have it like built-in functionality, but it was not the first that could go online. If you go back even farther, this was not covered in the AVGN either. The Famicom, the Japanese NES, could also go online.
Wow.
But it was mainly for parents. It was to check emails and stocks. Like it wasn't meant for gaming. There was no like infrastructure for people to be able to play competitive games online with each other. And if you go back even
stocks are the ultimate competitive
pretty
game,
much,
if
right?
we're being honest.
But if you go back even further than that, there's a company called like OnLive or Online. I forget. I think it was like OnLive or something like that. I'm going to look it up. I've brought this up a ton of times. And let me see. I think it was, is online service. I've Googled it a ton of different times. GameLine, that's what it was called. And it was a dial-up distribution service for the Atari 2600. And it when did it say that it came out? I'm trying to see when this actually existed. In 1983, it looks like they started looking into it. So they started like investigating this in the early 80s. Like, really? Like pre-NES in the US, they were already looking into games like this. And it's just insane to me that I'm in shock. Like I'm in genuine shock that this existed in the early 80s. And it's stuff like that where I started getting into old video games, and then that started me just buying games. And I never really threw out my games beforehand. Like I never traded any in either. So like a lot of the games you can, I know listeners can't see because it's an audio medium, but a lot of them here like are PS2 titles that I owned as a kid. And then end up just kept buying and buying and buying. And what you can't see is like they're like on the shelf behind my futon here is like Super Nintendo games. And actually, no, you can see them up there. There's Super Nintendo and NES and Sega CD and so on and so forth. And just learning about all the different facets of like game history that I didn't know about. I'm like, oh, I would love to own that. That'd be really cool to have and try and experience for myself. And it just kind of went from there. And then as to your question about what's it been like since the pandemic started? Well, it's been a shit show. It's been an absolute, like, it's been chaos. I have not gone crazy with collecting since the pandemic started for that reason. Not even for that reason, but that's been the main reason I haven't gone crazy with collecting because I have a kid now, so I can't really afford to drop the amount of money that I would go to conventions and drop like $300 or $400 every year on like collecting. It was only usually one convention I would drop all that at once, and then the rest of the year I would spend maybe an extra 50 to 100. Now I'm spending like 20 to 50 a year on collecting, and that's impossible to like if you want to get anything like really good or really interesting or valuable. Because now the game collecting market, unfortunately, people have gotten involved who aren't collectors. There's been a lot of people who've gotten involved that just are in it as an investment, and they're not in it because they actually care about games. And not all of them. Some of them are, it's a combo. They want to earn money off this and they genuinely like video games. But there's a really cool video that I will do a disservice to if I try to explain all of its points. But for those who are interested in like kind of why all these prices seem to be going up so dramatically, there's two reasons, in my opinion. One is that there's a concerted effort by investors to drive up the price because they view video games now that they know it's a viable collectibles market. They're viewing it as an investment. There's a dude on YouTube named Carl Jobst, Jobst. You can find a video where he talks about the Wata Games grading service, and they're the ones that you can send your sealed games off to, and they will give it a grading. And that increases the value because now, it's been graded professionally. Well, there's a lot of issues and there's some sketchy business involved with that. Not saying everyone at WATA is involved, but there's a lot of potential collusion between WATA Games and auction sites and driving up prices. Because sometimes, like, There's even websites now, like, for example, was it Super Mario? I think it was a Super Mario 64 copy. Maybe it wasn't that. Oh no, I think it was the Super Mario 64 copy. It was sold through, I think, like Heritage Auctions, maybe, or some auction site. It might have been Heritage. But the thing that's weird about it is it was sold by, there's a website, and I'm blanking on this website's name, where you can treat collectible video games almost as stocks, where say there is a single copy of Super Mario 64. 300 people can invest in that single copy of Super Mario 64. So it's like buying shares of a cartridge. So if that game is worth $100 and 50 people buy into it, they all pay $2 a share, right? So they own a 50th. Each of them owns a 50th of this cartridge, and then they can collectively do a vote and decide to sell it or sit on it. So with the the sealed Super Mario 64, it was like a couple $1,000s that they all paid in, maybe $100,000. It's still a lot of money, but then they put it up for auction and it sold for $2 million. So they all made bank. It was only like 300 people that invested in this copy of Super Mario 64, and maybe I'm misremembering, and that was the copy of Super Mario Brothers, but it was either Super Mario 64 or Super Mario Brothers, the sealed Super Mario Brothers, that this happened to, where it was a group of people invested shares into this copy of Super Mario whatever. I think it was actually Super Mario Brothers, now that I'm thinking about it. I think Super Mario 64 just sold outright, and then the sealed Super Mario Bros. Sold. It was a year ago now. I'm blanking on this. But it's just really weird. Like, why would, like, that's not people liking video games. Like, you don't invest a share of video games. Like, you can't even touch it then. Like, how do you even know the game exists?
Right.
It's very weird. Like, who, I don't understand it. So it's just very confusing. So Carl Jobs does an amazing video about it. Shout out a podcast that has no idea who I am, the CU podcast, the Completely Unnecessary podcast. That's hosted by Pat the NES Punk and his friend Ian Ferguson. They followed this story a lot last year. You can find it all on their feed. They covered it really in depth. So the collector's bubble is got a lot of problems. So that was to kind of tie it all up. That was the first half of what I was saying. There's two issues that was causing it. That was the first half. Collusion is the first half of that. The second is just nostalgia. Like, people, when the pandemic happened, people just wanted games, and they realized, like, oh man, I have all this extra time. Maybe I should go back and try this game that I loved as a kid. GameCube, for some reason, was that console that most people were nostalgic for, and the prices for the Cube shot up through the roof. So many games were significantly more money now. In fact, apparently, the retro market was actually starting to wane a little bit until the pandemic, and it got a shot in the arm. So we'll see how long it lasts. I mean, the reality of it is the collecting market is only as valuable as the interest is. So if, in like 5-10 years, when all these collectors or investors are trying to sell it off and no one younger than us gives a shit, then what's it worth? So it's kind of dumb to invest in my opinion, because not because I want to get rare games for cheap. It's just because unless you can like be certain that people younger than you are going to give a shit about what you're collecting, your collection's going to be worthless.
I feel like anytime that things start to emulate the way that Wall Street runs is never a good sign for anything. So, yeah, I can't believe that somebody would even come up with that idea to buy shares of a game like that. That hurts my brain just thinking about it. I mean, I try to invest in the stock market a little bit, and that hurts my brain trying to do it in finance. I can't imagine trying to do it with a video game. And that, yeah, I'm gonna go check out that video, because that seems like there's some definitely shady stuff going on underneath the surface.
It's an hour-long video, but it's worth a watch. Trust me.
Perfect. I don't like it. I think that's dumb. I think it's bad for, like you said earlier, I am firmly on the side of game preservation. I think it's a very important cause that needs to happen. And when you have people like this that are buying these up that aren't interested in the preservation aspect of it, or just making these extremely rare copies of things hard to find, that's I think just stupid and ridiculous just to make a quick buck off of it, because it's very much art and it needs to be preserved. And we can't do that if there's just jackasses running around trying to make money off of stuff.
There's a really cool video that if you're curious about more stuff like that, Frank Cifaldi, who's the head of the Video Game History Foundation, he does a video where he has 2 talks at GDC, Game Developers Conference, from a couple of years ago. You can watch them on YouTube. And I think one of it is like literally titled like "Steal from Your Companies," because it's literally talking about how like that's the only way you can preserve games, because companies don't care about this. It costs time and money to preserve their own games effectively. And why would they do that when that sees no financial benefit for them? You know what I mean? With that said, though, I would argue against that I would argue against that for this one reason. Infamously, Kingdom Hearts, to bring it back to one of your favorite series.
I was just thinking about
when
this.
they did the HD remake, they had to rebuild it all from scratch because they threw out the source code for the original game.
Right. The original game is lost to as far as we know, to history.
Though there is this is a somewhat recent development in video game preservation. I don't know all the details, but there is a group of people who were able to take a ROM of Zelda Ocarina of Time and reverse engineer the source code out of it. I don't know how they did that or what that means, but apparently that happened.
That sentence, you speaking that sentence, just doesn't make it doesn't. It hurts my brain because it shouldn't be possible, but that's incredible.
I mean, if you think about it, the source code is there somewhere. It's just I have no idea, or I don't know exactly how it works, but apparently they were able to do that. Which, if they're able to do that for one game, can they apply that to others? Which is a really cool, hopeful promise for the future. I shouldn't say promise, but a really cool it brings a lot of possibilities to the future of game preservation.
It does, and it continues to seem like the ball is very much in the consumer's court when it comes to doing things like that. Because like you said, the companies doesn't seem to be willing to do that, or they want to take that and lock it away so they can sell it back to us in however many years' time. So yeah, the ball is very much in our court to be proactive about that.
Emulate.
And, yes, and God bless the people that are way smarter than me doing the good work. You know, the good on them, and I hope they keep at it. So, yeah. But I appreciate that. That's a very good answer. All right, Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. We're going to wrap it up here. I really appreciate it. This was awesome. I've listened to you pretty much since the start of doing my own podcast, and you've been a huge inspiration to me the way you do your show. And I just it's so awesome to get you on here to talk to you, and I really appreciate all the things you've done in the community and all the things you've done for video games. And just thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I can't thank you enough, and I definitely want to have you back on again in the near future if you're willing to come back on.
Of course, man. I mean, I don't know what exactly I've done for the community, but you're welcome. I don't know, but no, thank you for having me on. Sincerely, like I when you started this, I'm like, oh, that would be a fun podcast to go on. So, but I'm not the type to be like, hey, invite me on your show. So I feel like that's rude. I don't know. But sincerely, man, thank you so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed this.
No problem. Do you want to take a few minutes just to kind of, or a quick second here, just to plug all your stuff?
Sure. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StillLoadingPod on all of them. I'm also on Twitch at StillLoadingPod over there, and also on that Swell app I mentioned before. Swell is like think of like Twitter, but it's all audio. Like it's like audiograms kind of. At Still Loading Pod on Swell, if for anyone who has Swell or is curious about it.
I might check it out.
It's an interesting app. It's kind of fun. But you can find me all in there. You can find the podcast wherever you find your good podcasts that are not sold and are free. You can also, but if you want to, but you can also find it on Patreon. I do bonus content for Patreon. Actually, now that I think of it, I think I have a bonus episode that's due out this Friday that I have not even started yet. So maybe I should get on that. Yeah. So I think patreon.com/stillloadingpod. You get episodes early. And if for $1 a month, you get episodes early at a higher bit rate. And for $5 a month, you get all of that, plus the bonus episodes that I mentioned. And both tiers get like a patron exclusive Discord that's pretty much dead. So you're pretty much getting it for just the free, the early access and the extra content. So yeah, that's what I got. Dude, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. One last thing before I go. I know you said I don't know if you're keeping this in the edit or not, but we have to wrap this up. But the last question that you had on our outline, and I really want to answer because I feel like it's okay. It might be helpful for other people in this situation. You mentioned that you, as a person who's attempting to start your own family, you've been trying to figure out how to balance work and life and this. And how have I done this? And I know that's kind of weird to set myself up for a question, so I apologize if that sounds arrogant.
No, that's fine.
I'll keep this brief. It's just make sure that it's all scheduling. And I don't mean like scheduling every single day. It's getting into a rhythm. My kid goes to bed at the same time every single night. I have 3 to 4 hours to myself every single night. And then I just figure out what I'm going to do with that. Monday nights, like Tuesday nights I stream, Saturday nights I stream, but Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Sunday are all to whatever I want to do. So like, for example, tonight I set aside time for this. Tomorrow is probably going to be the Patreon stuff I mentioned. Friday, I'm recording an episode for my own show. Saturday is a stream. Sunday will probably be editing for the next episode. And so on and so forth. And it's just a matter of budgeting your time. So it's my advice real quick. And for anyone who might have a crazy schedule, whether it's a kid related or otherwise, is at least in my experience, which I'm a new parent still, I only have one kid. When I have a second kid, who knows what's going to happen? We're not expecting, thank God, not yet. But it's just making sure you know what your schedule is and how much free time you have. And if you're lucky, I've been very lucky. My kid is very good and she sleeps very well. So good. I can always guarantee 4 to 5 hours to myself every single night. Though I do go to bed around midnight and wake up at 6:30, so I'm tired a lot. But you get it all done.
Hey, I look at it as you can sleep when you're dead,
pretty
right?
much.
So I mean, if and Arnold Schwarzenegger famously said that he doesn't get any more than 6 hours of sleep. So I mean, you don't need more than 6. So that's good. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I wanted to get. I ran a little bit over time here. So, but that is very good advice. It's something that I've been thinking about as I've very suddenly in the span of a couple years went from having more time than I knew what to do with to having almost less than I don't have kids yet. That is in the future plan. But yeah, I went from having unlimited time to no time in it seems like no time. So that's been something I've still been trying to figure out to make sure that all my responsibilities are met and I'm giving the people the time that need it from me still, but still be able to pursue my pursuits as well. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
And of course, set aside time for you and your wife too. I try to set aside time at least once a week for my wife and I to hang out and watch a show together or something. You know, make sure you're always spending time, because I spend as much time as I possibly can with my kid. But once she's asleep, that's when I get to do what I actually want to do, which is like record podcasts and play video games and hang out with cool people like you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's important too, is we kind of tend to prioritize ourselves last in the grand scheme of things, right? And we need time for ourselves too. And I think that's important. It's difficult. It's something that I know I've struggled with, is that when so many people want and need your time and attention, you almost feel selfish taking time for yourself, but you do need to do that, and you need to take care of yourself, and you need to have that time so that you can be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. So if anybody's listening, and this will kind of be my outro too, I always tell people to take care of themselves. Make sure you take care of yourself, and take time to do the things you want to, because it's very important. So.
Oh.
Okay, I didn't know if you were going to do anything else, but I'll just cut out
I was doing
the
the thumbs up. I'm like, yeah, grade A transition right into your outro, dude. And then you just paused it. I'm like, no, you had it. You had it in the.
I didn't know how to outro it. I didn't know how to
outro
it. But yeah, as always, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and as always, take care of yourselves.